Cynics on Disney podcast contains adult language. Listener discretion is advised.
This is the Cynics on Disney podcast, presented by nightclub33.com.
Welcome into this week's episode of the Cynics on Disney podcast. I'm your host, Bobby, aka the Disney Cynic.
And I'm Amanda, aka the Anti-Cynic.
And today we are continuing not to review stuff. Who am I kidding? It's just been hectic. Life has been hectic. We've got someone over here who has had a just awful cough for like a week and a half, 2 weeks, something like that.
I've been just a cough. I've been sick.
I mean, yeah, but the point being that even when you felt better, we haven't been able to really go anywhere unless someone stare at you like you're patient zero.
Right, because this cough is no joke.
No, it's literally whooping cough. I thought we had gotten rid of that in the 1700s or something, but instead, nope. There's my wife. Whooping.
And tonight should be, while recording this, should be good, because if I laugh too hard, then the coughing fit just is ridiculous.
Well, I will try to keep the jokes to a minimum.
Appreciate it.
Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about that kind of piggybacking off of our last episode where we talked about all of the differences between the 90s and now when it comes to the theme park experience. And I don't just mean, obviously we have our opinions when it comes to whether we thought the 90s were better or now. I think we both voted 90s, even though the rides were technically less and everything like that. And the reasoning behind all of that is because, well, we think it's better themed back in the 90s. That's really what it boils down to. As a result, I wanted to kind of expound upon what I'm defining as theming and what others may be talking about when they're discussing theming at Disney. And also kind of want to put them down because they deserve to be put down. I'm not saying that you should shoot the lion or whatever, like the poacher did back in the day on Kilimanjaro safaris, but like I need you to pretend to be that hunter right now so that you can take down this new word. That's right, new word. Like, yeah, forward, but with new way of thinking. I think I came up with that portmanteau. I don't know. But hey, Amanda.
Yes.
Not only are you a licensed social studies teacher,
right,
but you are also a licensed language arts teacher.
Yes.
So, as a language arts teacher, can you give us a very definitive definition of the word theme?
Basically, sorry, my language arts teacher mode goes to a different definition for the word theme than what you're looking for.
No, I listen, you are welcome to go ahead and lay it out there so that we can discuss it. So we can talk about the same thing.
So in the world of language arts and reading and writing, a theme is like the overall lesson or moral of the story, life lesson, universal truth or whatever.
Sure.
That's what, when you say theme, that's immediately where my mind goes. I know that with what we're talking about, it's not necessarily that same definition.
I disagree.
Okay, maybe it is.
Okay, and the reason why I say that is because theming is something that runs throughout a story.
Right. It is something that...
And Disney in particular is someone who is purported to be an excellent storyteller as a studio.
Right.
So that is their objective when it comes to all of the various lands, when it comes to even the individual attractions themselves, even at the resorts, even at Disney Springs, there's a story that runs through it all, and theming is supposed to run throughout that story. Does it not?
You are absolutely correct. That is exactly how it's supposed to go.
So it's not anti your definition at all. In fact, I
Okay.
demand that it be something that does run through the story. Okay, so we take a look at something that like Dino Land USA. All right, and I'm picking that one in particular because nobody knows the story.
Yeah, that is one where the story gets kind of lost, I think, because
It, it's actually cohesive. It
it
actually
is
works.
cohesive. If you know the story, it is cohesive. If you don't know the story, then it just seems like a mess.
Yes, right. But in fact, technically speaking, Dino Land USA is one of the most immaculately themed areas at Walt Disney World. Okay,
And
let's go over the.
this is
I
where the
mean,
details come into play big time
yes.
here.
So everything within that land, including the old Chester and Hester bullshit,
Mhm.
all of it is interconnected. If you don't know what the story is, basically, an old guy found some dinosaur bones way back in the day.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden, a bunch of people flocked to come try to dig them up, both paleontologists and amateur diggers and everything. And in order to support all of these people coming into town, a little town was sprung up and a cottage
Right.
industry of tourism was born. But any sort of town out west and any sort really like you go, if you've ever traveled out west, you've probably run into one of those ghost towns or one of those
Right.
tacky ass old timey western towns that you might see in a movie or something like that.
Right.
You know, that cottage industry sprung up, and that's what gave way to Chester and Hester. On top of that, archaeologists or not paleontologists all descended upon Restaurantosaurus, which was a lodge for all of these paleontologists. And they started, all the interns in particular, started writing a whole bunch of goofy shit on the walls and making it their own type paleontologist hangout. And then back behind that is Dinosaur or Countdown to Extinction. I'm going to continue to call it Countdown. But it all interconnects and it's all
Right.
very important to the whole story of the land. Now,
Right.
yes, we have a shitty roller coaster that is no longer there. Okay. Not saying that it's not an off the shelf ride. I'm not accusing Triceratops Spin of being anything but abhorrent. Okay. I'm
But
not
here's
saying
the thing.
the attractions are good. Right.
Here's
Exactly.
the thing. The whole Chester and everybody gives that part like such crap, but it was actually, I mean, it's a roadside carnival. That's what the whole purpose of that was. It wasn't meant to. Triceratops Spin and Primeval Whirl were never meant to be world class roller coasters. It was like a roadside carnival in a small little town. So if you go to one of these like country fairs or whatever, it's that's the kind of things that you would see, and that's what the whole purpose of that was.
So it is a common misconception, by the way, just to sprinkle in my pepper in, if you will, my hatred of intellectual property integration in the parks. Okay,
Yeah,
it is a common misconception that the ride dinosaur is themed to the movie Dinosaur of the
and
same name.
it's not.
It's not. It
It's not.
is
It was built
Countdown
first.
to Countdown to Extinction was built first, and they decided, oh, we have an iguanodon on a ride, and we have a Carnotaurus on a ride. Why don't we make those the hero and villain dinosaurs of our dinosaur movie? And that's the only connection.
Yeah,
By the way, one of my favorite attractions at Epcot, Mission Space, that is also an intellectual property integration. The movie was Mission to Mars. It starred Gary Sinise. It also starred Don Cheadle. And it had something to do with the face on Mars. It was a crappy movie. It absolutely was. There's no doubt about it. But it is an intellectual property integration.
yeah.
Do you know? Do you care? If you're on that attraction, do you give a flying fuck
No,
about Gary Sinise's character in Mission to Mars?
I just missed his character in the pre-show for
Right.
that ride.
Don't make no mistake. We love us some Jessica Pearson, okay, but not in this role. That's all. That's all we're
Bring
saying.
back Lieutenant Dan.
Yes, agreed. So that's why I'm starting to get a little bummed when I take a look at something like Test Track, which is its
Yeah,
next door neighbor. And Test Track started off in 99 as a testing facility for all the
It was the theming was
vehicle parts.
great. The
It
theming
was
was
amazing.
fantastic.
All the different gizmos and robots and gadgets that were out in the queue, it actually made the queue interesting to be in.
Yeah,
On top
yeah,
of that, they take you into a pre-show where they set up the idea of you being crash test dummies essentially, and
right.
that's what. But it's the human first live test of a human in this car. That's the point of it.
Yeah.
That was awesome. It was immaculately themed. And then what happened with Test Track now?
What, like, we're supposed to, quote, unquote, "build a car and see how it do," like, I still don't get how that part works. Like,
So
the
I'm convinced that like the Tron attraction at Disney World was supposed to be Test Track, and then they fucked
ah,
something up,
yeah,
and then they were like, "All right, let's just redo Test Track and beg GM to come back, and we'll put cars in for free or something."
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
that I think that's what happened there. But the nonetheless, the ride itself, there's no continuity. Your car that you design doesn't look like the car that you get into.
right, right,
So no, right off the bat, there's no theming that is throughout the entirety of that story.
right.
On, and on top of that, there's no characters involved. There's you, I suppose, but what I mean by characters, I mean just the people on screen. Not need to be. Please, God, did not make it into Lightning McQueen or whatever. Like, please don't do that, Disney. But the people on the screen, the Dr. Grant Seeker over at Countdown
Right.
to Extinction,
Yeah.
those are story characters that are running throughout the story, just like the theme. And that continuity from point A to point B is super important. It's something that has gotten lost in cinema these days. And there's a reason why, you guys don't know this about me typically, right? But I have a weird love of movies, like
God.
a very weird love of movies. I can quote shit that I saw when I was 4 years old.
It's really fun because I'm the opposite. I don't really care about movies.
But I love genuine films.
Yeah,
I
no, you
love
do.
genuine cinema. I don't just love. It's not just fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. Although there's some great ones out there. There's some bad ones too. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, True Lies, best one. Anyway, um, my point is that I love cinema. I love storytelling, and this is not only Disney's problem. This is Hollywood's problem. Is that they think if they throw a bunch of CGI and explosions at people, that constitutes a theme or a story, and it doesn't. Michael
No.
Bay is the worst person to ever walk the planet when it comes to cinema.
Yeah,
He
I still
really
don't
is.
understand the story behind Transformers, but,
Yeah, no one does. But that's because that's a movie that didn't need to get made. But rah, shira, rah, all of a sudden CGI shit. Okay. Anyway, point being, I know what I'm talking about when it comes to things like theming and cinema, trying to tell a story, trying to even yeah, doesn't matter what you think of whatever messages that they are trying to portray. The theme of Animal Kingdom, the what connects the entirety of that theme park is the theme of conservation. That is a theme that is present in literally every attraction up until any of the new ones.
yeah, you are absolutely right. It is exactly the theme of the whole park.
So it can be simply a message or simply a moral narrative that you're trying to convey, which that's what conservation is.
Yeah,
I'm not disputing that. It's not the worst one that's out there,
right.
but nonetheless, the theme of Epcot is twofold. One is futurism, or at least it used to be. God knows what the fuck it is now,
Yeah,
right?
okay, yeah, if we wanna talk about bad theming, like, just the whole future world, what used to be future world part, that used to be Epcot, and I can see kind of why they've done some of the changes they've done, because for a long period of time, Epcot had this reputation of being the adult park or the boring park because there wasn't a lot there for kids that, or at least there didn't seem like there was a lot there for kids. There was, if you looked, there
Not just
was.
that. It's not just that. It's that if you just fucking twisted their arm a little bit, like they might have actually enjoyed all that shit.
They would
Just saying.
have. They would have.
Except
I'm sorry.
except for the
They're for
I will
what?
say the except for the universe of energy, the original universe of
That
energy.
yeah.
Yeah, no,
Even the
no,
one you took me on was boring, but you know.
I don't disagree.
But no, like innovation. Um or interventions, excuse me.
Yeah,
Just that whole thing. Like it was and you had a whole bunch of different things that you could do in those two buildings and they were constantly changing the thing. So, you were getting something like pretty much new every visit. I mean, I made paper. I made paper one time. Okay? I built a little plastic robot. Um, I designed multiple roller coasters
oh,
while
who
on
did?
my college program. Because that became my absolute favorite thing to do at
Yes,
Epcot.
it's one of the top 5 things I've ever done at Disney
Like,
World, by the way.
yeah, like that just became like my absolute favorite thing at Epcot. So I designed countless roller coasters. Um, you know, you had all of these different things, and when it really was about the future and bringing in new technologies and everything, and like getting off of Spaceship Earth, you go into what I guess you could call like a giant playroom where they have different, games and stuff. The technology used to be like, you know, it used to be a little bit futuristic that you were playing with. Now it's really not anymore, but things like that, and they've gotten away from that big time.
They absolutely have. And the way that they do that is try to retrofit or retcon like the whatever the theme is to fit whatever they want the narrative to be now.
Right, right,
And what that is akin to, I guess, sort of in my mind, um, it's kind of akin to taking Sherlock Holmes, and I'm using that character and that anthology for a reason, because it has multiple authors. It's not just Sir Arthur or what
mhm,
it's
Conan
Arthur
Doyle.
Conan Doyle. That anyway. Point being, they didn't change the fundamentals of Sherlock Holmes, regardless of who the writer of that
Right,
novel was.
right,
Like so with something like Epcot in particular, Animal Kingdom is another, but even Hollywood Studios and Magic Kingdom to a degree, I
mhm,
understand why longtime Disney fans would be upset over this retrofitting and retconning of the theme of the park.
right,
Like we didn't go to Epcot for 50 or 40 some odd years now, basically going in with whatever the modern take is on that.
right, right.
And we don't want to either, I don't think, as a community anyway. There's
Well,
some things that we're cool with updating. It's fine to like get new attractions in there, but that doesn't mean that you divert from that original theme.
right.
You just take whatever the subject matter is, especially at some place like Epcot, and try to make it better.
And that's the thing is Epcot was the perfect park to lend itself to that constant change that Walt always talked about, but that they want to do. You want to constantly change and keep things fresh, and Epcot was the park to do that.
I've been actually watching a lot of different theme park videos and stuff on
Mhm.
YouTube, and because especially during that 90s versus now
Yeah,
research, like I wanted to brush up a lot
yeah.
more and sound like I knew what the hell I was talking about. So hopefully I did. I don't know.
I mean, I think
But
you did.
one of the things that keeps coming up though is that Walt quote that, "Oh, Disneyland is not a museum; it'll never be finished." You
It's
know why
always
he
just
said?
that.
Yeah, no. He said it once, and he said it in like 1956,
Mm,
like 5 months after the park opened, because
mm.
people were like, "Hey, there's a lot of construction going on. So what's the deal with that?" Well, it'll never be finished. That was kind of like his response
Yeah.
to that. It was
But
not. He did say it wasn't going to be a museum, and that's fine. But even museums change up exhibits, and it's
right.
okay to do that.
But and here's I mean, even if he hadn't have said that quote, if you look at just the things that he was a revolutionary in technology.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
because of him. Animation is what it is because of the things that he pioneered and the
Yeah,
things that he introduced. The multiplane camera being introduced into animation was revolutionary at the time. Making a full-length animated feature that was Snow White was revolutionary at the time. That's what he was. He was an absolute revolutionary. He constantly was looking at the future. He was constantly looking at how things were going to go. And yeah, like even if he hadn't have said that quote, the way that he ran the company and it tells you that that's what he was about. He was about what comes next.
but that does not mean that you stray from the theme.
No, no.
And so the by the way, kudos to you for remembering all that shit from that Walt Disney walkthrough attraction thing.
Ah,
Because yeah,
I'm
that.
the history buff.
Uh, how many times have we actually gone through that?
I've actually gone through that several times.
No, we have
Oh,
gone through
we
that
maybe
several
once,
times.
maybe.
No, at least 3 or 4 times
One time
together.
was literally just for me to go meet baby Groot, but yeah.
Anyway, okay. Um, so I take a look at something like um, Hollywood Studios, and obviously that is a park that you can do. You got a lot more wiggle room
Right.
than I would say Epcot does,
Yeah.
right? That's the park where if you have something like so ultra movie specific, that's the place to put it.
Yeah.
Like, no offense to Disneylanders, actually, offense to Disneylanders. Fuck you. Um, I don't know why I had to be that
Ugh,
violent about it, but I did. Um, like, Galaxy's Edge doesn't belong anywhere near fucking Disneyland theme park. It just doesn't. Like, it's so ultra specific to Star Wars that it makes sense at California Adventure
yeah.
because they tried to do the whole, you know,
Yeah.
oh, this is California and we make movies thing, and then Hollywood Studios as well. Like,
Right.
I don't understand why they would try to squeeze that in there, because the lands over at Magic Kingdom, in particular, they are also kind of painted with a broad brush, but that does not necessarily mean like one particular story dominates that entire land, with the
Right.
exception of our Liberty Square, because there's only two attractions there. So
Well, yeah. Yeah.
one of them is boring. So I don't even know that it counts as an attraction.
No, I mean it is. There's three. There's three attractions.
What's the third?
Hall of Presidents.
That's the one that I was talking about being
Oh, the
boring.
riverboat. The riverboat.
Oh, I thought that was part of Frontierland. Oh well, doesn't matter. Um, but nonetheless, Frontierland. Let's go over there for an example. Frontierland. Actually, if you look at the way that the park is set up, you transition from Liberty Square to Frontierland
Ah,
because you are going from east to west.
it makes me so happy. As someone who teaches
What?
American history, that
And
transition,
you didn't even tell me that one. Like, we didn't talk
that
about that.
transition. No, we didn't. But that transition
That's
makes
not one
me
that you
so
brag
happy.
about knowing.
Oh,
But
but I know it.
that's the type of thing that we're talking about, well themed. And then on top of that, no one story over at Frontierland, even though there's really only just the one right now, with Thunder Mountain. But nonetheless, it doesn't dominate,
Right.
especially when Tiana's Splash Mountain, whatever, is open.
Right.
So to me, those are perfectly fine to theme to whatever. And look, the Magic Kingdom is supposed to contain a little bit of magic and whimsy. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it being there. And I really need to, I feel like I need to clarify my thoughts on intellectual property and not do this where I'm just beating a dead horse over and over and over again. Yep. There you go. Video watchers will note that she's that literally waving her hand like she's beating something. Not sure what, but anyway.
Well, I don't have a dead
Um,
horse, so it wasn't that.
well, there you go. Okay. Um, but when intellectual property integration is done well and it fits, it's fine.
Yeah.
And but you don't have to have something that's on screen every time. It's literally been that since 2012 when Test Track opened. See, I did that on purpose there, but um, it's not been, or it's been 12 years almost since that opened, and that was really the last attraction to open or reopen that didn't
Yeah.
have the bumper sticker of a movie
Right.
that came out attached to it.
Right.
I
Yeah.
can't think of another one.
I can't think of another one either.
So when I've gone 12 years, literally a dozen, almost a
Mhm.
baker's dozen next year, without an attraction that is independent of your film catalog, I'm just annoyed. I want one or two things to just kind of be generic to the whatever section of the park I'm in, and not have to worry about like, oh, did I watch this movie? Do I know who the hell
Right.
these people are? Because the going on the rides themselves should tell you who these characters are. Anyway,
Yeah.
it should be made easy for you. And
Mhm.
I feel like there are times I love Galaxy's Edge. All right. I think it's one of the better achievements in theme parks
Yeah.
that's ever been created. Also, you have to know who the fuck these people are for it to make any sense. If you just stopped at the prequels or stopped after the original three movies, you are fucking lost on Rise of the Resistance. You have
Yep.
no idea what's going on.
None.
You have an idea of the stormtroopers, that's fine, but you
Mhm.
don't know who Ray is. You don't know
Or
who
Kylo
Finn,
Ren.
yeah, or the guy who's rescuing Finn. There it is, or
Yeah.
Poe, or you don't know any
Yeah.
of these people.
Yeah.
That's why it bothers me. Because what if I wasn't a dork, or a husband who loved his wife and said, "Fine, going to see these shitty ass movies over and over again." Yeah, because it wasn't me who was going to see those.
But it was always you suggesting it.
Well, and I also wanted to like get date night counted in your category, so
Uh,
I think it worked.
it did.
Yeah. And by the way, every Disney date that we take, that's in the U category. So
Okay.
yeah, there you go. Um, but that's the problem with using intellectual property is that if you aren't someone who knows these stories or these movies, then you are lost.
Yeah.
Whereas Space Mountain, you have a lot more leeway and you are able to fill in the gaps in whether it's in your brain. All they do is tell you that you're on a space station that is called Space Mountain or Starport 75. And that's it.
Yeah.
They don't give you any other information really.
I remember as a kid, and I as a kid growing up the only child in my house because my siblings are a lot older and they were living with their mom. So I grew up in an only child scenario. And which means my imagination got used a lot because I was by myself a lot.
No.
And Shut up. Um, I remember like walking through as a kid, walking through like, Tomorrowland and coming up in my head with these scenarios, to fit what I was, walking through or doing or that kind of thing. And, kind of connecting everything together. Um, and Tomorrowland lent itself very well to that, especially if you did the people mover and you kind of did, oh, this is like a little, city of the future. Here's all the sights to see.
Mhm.
Like I got into that mindset and then, I would go, okay, I'm gonna go to Space Mountain and, you know, teleport into space and then, come back and, do whatever. And like I would just walk around with these stories going on in my head because it lent itself so well to that.
Absolutely. I completely understand. It's how I was with the original Living Seas. I've said that before, that I was filling in the gaps on that attraction. It wasn't that I had it hand fed to me. It was
Right.
that I did that too. And I think a lot of us did, by the way. It's not, I mean, nobody talks
No,
about
and
that
I
kind of
think I
shit,
think
but you know,
and I'm gonna make myself sound old here.
okay.
Um Well, I think with our generation, because we didn't, came of age with the internet, like, as the internet was also coming of age, so were we, um, kind of thing. We still like had the internet wasn't wasn't like this all
No,
encapsulated.
you didn't even really have to worry about
You
any
didn't need it.
weirdos on AIM or anything like that
Yeah,
back in the
but
day.
it also like we weren't using phones or computers for every piece of interaction.
Oh no.
I look at my students today and dear God, like I live for the days when I have activities for them that don't require their laptops
So
because
I
that's
want to
all
touch
they do.
I want to touch on that here in a second.
Okay.
Okay. Um More so towards the quote unquote future, I guess,
Okay.
when it comes to theming and that kind
Okay.
of thing. Because you're right. There this generation, and I'm presuming when we have children, our child's generation, they are screen dependent, even more so than I am.
And the
And I
imaginations are very much lacking.
well, yeah, but that doesn't mean that it can't be just like a lot of other things, so long as you it's not that X, Y, or Z is a bad thing.
No.
It's a tool and it's how you use that tool, whether it makes it a weapon or something that's
Right.
handy.
Right.
And right now it's weaponized, but it could be just used as a tool, and that's fine.
Mhm.
You know, that's that's something to think about, I guess, as we kind of progress, because I don't want to I'm not the person who suggests there's a problem without also saying there's a solution. Amanda
Right.
hates me for this. This is the
Sometimes.
longest running argument in our marriage. I think this is so true for every couple that's out there.
Sometimes I
What
just
is
wanna
it?
vent. Sometimes I just wanna vent.
Yeah, that's dumb. It's stupid. And I'll go ahead and speak for men everywhere. Wife feel bad because X. We not want wife feel bad. We provide solution for X, which is Y, and then wife not feel bad. If I make cavemen speak, I mean, that's the logic behind it. It's caveman logic, and it works. It turns out that it's also smart person logic, because it's not just me and other cavemen who go about this. I've had this discussion with others. So, but that's that's why I want to make sure that I point out that no, we don't want to just come on here and bitch and then have nothing
Right.
like to say on how to fix it, I guess, or at least what would fix it in our mind.
Yeah.
So, what's the worst example to you of theming at Disney?
Um, That one, I can't off the top of my head.
So I can pick out two pretty big examples for me.
I mean, right now, Epcot, what used to be Future World. I
Okay,
don't know what the heck they're doing.
so Toy Story Land to me is a terrible, terrible execution of theming.
Okay.
Because while it's immersive, sort of, I feel like, and this is me as an adult, not me as a kid. So this is, my sensibilities, not everyone's, and I understand that. I know that there's no shrinking ray that I'm walking through that shrinks me down to the size of a toy. I also know that every single one of the characters that I'm about to encounter is a character and not a real person. And so, therefore, I am immediately out on the immersion because I can't turn that part of my brain off.
Mm-hmm.
I can't.
Mm-hmm.
You can make giant versions of erector sets and grass clippings all you want to. That does not make me feel like a toy.
Okay.
So that's the reason why I think that it's one of the worst examples of theming. The second one that I will point out is not a ride necessarily, but we should talk about this as well. It's a resort.
Okay.
The Riviera Resort is gorgeous.
I was gonna.
It's stunningly beautiful. Also, it is not themed in any way, shape, or form. It just looks like a JW Marriott.
It does. Like I know what they were trying to do, but they didn't do it.
Yeah. Period. And no, slapping a bunch of fucking Disney characters up on the wall that we can also buy doesn't make up for your lack of theming.
Right.
In fact, to me, it not only
takes it away. I mean, if you go to like Animal Kingdom Lodge, you don't have the theme. You're immersed in the theme without the Disney characters added.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about this when Pat was on, maybe that where you don't get the sense of you're in the story of the Lion King. You just get the sense of I'm in Africa. Right. I mean, that's the point of it.
Right.
And this is why I'm begging for Disney to do one final thing with Joe Rohde and just let him do whatever the fuck he wants. Whatever he wants. You give him no restrictions. You don't tell him no. You just let him be and just open it wherever he wants to open it because it will be perfect. It will be perfectly themed. It will have a cohesive story to it, and he will not rely on one of your fucking cartoons to make it happen.
Right. Right.
And that's the problem that we keep coming into. A cartoon is not a theme.
No.
Or a movie, something that you see on a TV screen is not a theme. The point of all of these resorts that have been lauded for years was that they took you from Florida and put you somewhere else, whether that was Wilderness Lodge, putting you in the Pacific Northwest, whether that was the Polynesian, making you into a Pacific Islander, whether that was even to a degree something like Caribbean Beach or Coronado Springs, the original incarnation of Coronado Springs, Port Orleans. Yeah. You can go down the list pretty much. Even the Disney Vacation Club / Old Key West, like those.
Old Key West is like old Florida for sure.
But you are transported from where you are, and placed in the with that resort inside of a completely different location. That's the point of a theme. That is the perfect and shining example of a theme.
I do want to make a point when you said Port Orleans. I know that we don't really like French Quarter for reasons. It looks like it. But I mean, my dad has been to New Orleans and he has said that the French Quarter Resort that is New Orleans.
And that's okay. It sucks. It's a shitty resort. Don't ever stay there.
But the theming is great.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
So walk around and you'll feel like you're in New Orleans.
Yeah, absolutely. Even I've seen some pictures of the real Saratoga Springs up in New York,
Mhm.
and the Saratoga Springs Resort looks a hell of a lot like that one. So, as much as we can knock Saratoga Springs for kind of being bland, it looks like Saratoga Springs, New York. Just imagine
Cool.
Ocala. If the Ocala the resort, that's what Saratoga Springs is.
But don't have to visit the real Saratoga Springs.
No, not at all. Thank God too, because that's in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Like Ocala?
Anyway,
Oh, look, and Ocala is also known for horses.
yeah, that was why I made that comparison.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, that's right. I know things. I know things about things.
That's a
That's
good thing.
why that's why I'm pontificating as I am.
Right.
Sorry, I didn't mean to use a Frasier word. Um, I mean that is a Frasier word.
No, it
You
is.
know. So what would you say the best example then would be at Disney if Riviera and Future World are not the best?
Animal Kingdom Lodge is definitely one of the best, I think.
Okay.
Um, and I mean, Polynesian before, and I hate this because I absolutely love Lilo and Stitch. But before Lilo and Stitch and Moana became the focus of the Polynesian resort, the Polynesian was immaculately themed.
Well, not anymore. It's not.
No, unfortunately. Um, again, as much as I love Lilo and Stitch, because Stitch is my favorite,
Well,
but the theming, but again, Animal Kingdom Lodge is one of the best themed resorts on
what
property.
what land inside of a theme park then would you say is the most immaculately themed?
Honestly, I think Liberty Square is pretty well themed in Magic Kingdom.
Okay.
I mean
That would not have made my top 20.
they've got well, I think with Liberty Square, it's a smaller land, and I don't think people pay attention to the details there. But if you look at the details, you realize just how well themed it is. They've got the Liberty Tree that was a real thing during
Yeah.
the Revolutionary period. That tree has 13 lanterns in it to represent the 13 colonies. They even, I mean, the buildings, the very colonial style buildings. And then if you pay attention when you're walking, if you look in the middle of the path, you'll see like it looks like brown like cobblestone. But it looks like it's like kind of like a river type thing, and it's actually made to represent sewage. Because there was no indoor plumbing, and the sewage just ended up in the streets.
Gross.
Um, but the detail there, like they put that detail in, um, to give it again a more authentic feel. So, I think if again with that one, paying attention to the details, um, makes Liberty Square very well themed, in my opinion.
Okay. All right. So I would say that the most immaculately themed attraction might be Tower of Terror.
Oh yeah, attraction wise, that is by yeah. No, yeah.
And this is where intellectual property integration is done well. What I mean by that is they took a property like the Twilight Zone, which was an anthology series,
Mhm.
again, um, and because every episode was different, they reused actors on occasion. They but they told a different story every time, which made it great for something like a theme park
Yeah,
because then you could tell a story in the style of the Twilight Zone and you didn't have to have seen the Twilight Zone to
right.
understand what the characters were, who the little girl is that's holding on to the nanny's hand, what the Hollywood Tower Hotel was. Because again, once you get in and you watch Rod Sterling,
Mhm.
I think everybody's heard the Twilight theme song or Twilight
Mhm.
Zone theme song. So, that beyond just even that one little musical clip,
Mhm.
I mean, outside of that one musical clip, there's really nothing else that is ultra specific that to
Right.
anything other than what you saw as a type of story that the Twilight Zone would tell. So that's great. Um, Intellectual property just done amazing. By the way,
Yeah. Yeah,
but also
it makes you feel part of the story, which is
Mhm.
what is supposed to happen at Disney World.
Absolutely. And by the way, another example of that's not the greatest of attractions that are out there. I would point to Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular because the
Mhm.
original theme of Disney's MGM studios at the time was a working studio.
Mhm.
That's where you went to shoot the movies.
Right.
Now, you could also experience the movies. That's fine. But the point was this is a place where we make movies.
Right.
This is how we do stunts
Yeah.
and we show it off. That's a great and also everybody's familiar with Indiana Jones, but you're not told to think that it's Indiana Jones up there
Right.
doing all those
You're
stunts.
like, "This is how we shot these scenes.
Correct.
This is
Now,
how,"
it's last time we went, it sucked. Okay, don't get me wrong. And part of it is because they took all the authenticity out from the shoot of the movie versus now, and they didn't do the plane and the explosion thing because I guess high winds or something.
Yeah, there
I
was
don't know.
something up with they couldn't do the plane.
But you know, anyway, a lot of the COVID, there was no audience participation this last time, and that was part of the theme as well. Was oh hey you're touring the studio, we need some extras here, you come
Mhm.
on over here. I think that was a lot of people's impression of Hollywood from back in the
Yeah,
day that you could tour a studio
and
and
you just be
find
pulled on.
stardom.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so absolutely it was immaculately themed to the original park. Now that they've kind of taken a lot of that away, that story that's running throughout the entire theme park, it makes absolutely no sense, and they need to get rid of it.
It's just, here's a bunch of different movies.
Yeah, and that's not what that stunt show was supposed to be about.
No.
So
Well, and then you had the
maybe
backlot. Not only that, but you had the backlot tour.
yeah, it's no longer
Where,
here. Rest in
you
peace.
know, even the Lights Motor Action stunt show where they showed you how they
Yeah,
did the stunts with the cars. Like they walked you through, okay, this is how, this type of car scene is shot, and this is how this type is shot, and here's one with the motorcycle, and you know,
yeah.
that kind of thing. And then they had the enemy.
Audio listeners, Amanda may have just died. But she did so on camera in a very funny looking way. So there's that. We'll give her just a second to recover from this. While she's coughing up a lung, let me go ahead and say the best themed resort, in my opinion, is Yacht Club. And it's because I think we all have a vision of what a stuffy ass yacht club looks like. And that's exactly what the yacht club at Disney World is like. You don't have to even know that you are supposed to be transported to Martha's Vineyard in order to feel like you are at a yacht club. Whereas even beach club, you have to feel like you're at a beach, but you're not really at a beach.
No,
You're at
it's
a
like
lake.
Cape May or something like that.
Yeah,
You're in a
that's what the
you're in a New
water.
England beach.
Yeah, that's not what New England beaches look like. I can assure you. But anyway, um, even boardwalk where you're meant to feel like you're walking around on some sort of New Jersey coastal town, seashore. Again, there's no shore, there's no beaches, and there's no mafia guy running around like threatening to whack you. So all of that, whatever theming there, that goes out the window. So to me, it's yacht club as like the best of the theming at the resorts. Now, that does not mean that it's my favorite resort to stay at. It just means that it's the most on point when it comes to it. Because I want to come up with solutions rather than just talk about the problems that we have with it. What would you want to do to make any one particular land or even full theme park more cohesive?
Honestly, with Epcot, since right now I'm just mad,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that is, it was it was a fairly cohesive. Future World was fairly cohesive before.
So, so if you're doing that, just know that you're going to have to knock down Guardians of the Galaxy. You're going to have to knock down the current version of Test Track.
I'm not okay. The current version of Test Track can go.
Sure. Well, it
Okay.
is.
The current version of Test Track sucks. I want to go back to the old version of Test Track.
Absolutely.
Um, Guardians of the Galaxy, as much as I love that ride, I'm not sure it fits.
Of course, it doesn't
It's
fit.
I think the only reason why they they made it quote unquote fit is because they made it to where you know Peter remembers the 80s and you only had Magic Kingdom and Epcot.
Yeah.
That's
And
why it got put in
Epcot
Epcot.
and Epcot was so much cheaper than going
Right.
to Magic Kingdom. That's for sure.
Right.
Um,
But you only had that's the only reason why it's in Epcot.
so does that mean
Um
that you would bring back the World of Motion and Horizons and Universe of Energy,
I don't
or
know if
would
I don't know if I would bring those back. And I'm not necessarily saying bring back everything from the original Epcot. But I am saying you had a land, Future World, and
Mhm.
it was you knew exactly. First of all, the name tells you what it's about. I don't know what the hell World Celebration is. Okay? Um, you know, so you
I don't think
had a
anybody really does. So
right. Right. That's my point. Like at least
I
with
don't think
Future
Disney
World,
does.
right. Right. With Future World, the name told you what you needed to know, what to expect in here. Um you had your now I will say this. I will say this. I think the seas and the land may have not been they could have been called a separate area. Not necessarily in Future World, but Future World, you had the things of the future. You had interventions. You had where you were testing all these different new technologies. You had Test Track, which I know doesn't seem like it would be like a Future World thing, but if you think about it, like, hey, we are becoming live test dummies. That is kind of a futuristic thing.
And
Um,
they don't really
you know,
use humans for testing anymore, but
but you know what I mean, you get kind of what I'm saying.
I do.
Um,
The pavilion's theme is supposed to
the
be
pavilion,
transportation.
yeah. Yeah,
So I get it.
I think if you did more along the lines of, I guess pavilions, having these themed pavilions rather than whatever it is right now, because I don't know what it is right now.
I think that you're on the right track. If it was me who was doing it, I would set literally just the transportation pavilion,
Yeah,
the
have
space
the different
pavilion,
pavilions.
the land pavilion, the seas pavilion, you can call it
Because
imagination.
those pavilions, and even World Showcase, those pavilions are themed very well. Um,
And
it
I personally to sorry, I wanted to finish the thing where I was going with that. Um, Within that pavilion, you have the heart of the theme as part of the queue. So
mhm,
You can call it the transportation pavilion, and you'll get whatever the spiel was going to
Right.
be from World of Motion. But after that queue area, I would say that the attractions could be updated and
Yeah.
rotated so that there is no definitive one attraction anymore.
Right.
All of the diorama slow ride type of attractions, like the original Living Seas and the Land and Spaceship Earth, those should have sets and props within them that are easily movable and updated. It
So
should not,
basically, go ahead. I'm sorry.
like, that last scene in Spaceship Earth should
Mhm.
never take more than 20 minutes to update.
Right.
Same
Also,
thing, by the way, with Carousel of Progress. It should never take
yeah, I
more
was
than
about to
20
say,
minutes to
can we
update.
update the last scene of Carousel of Progress, please?
Well,
That'd be great.
no, we can't, but it's neither here.
Um, because we are that's no longer the future. It
N-
it's about to be the
No, it's
past.
literally like 20, so 2000 and late is what it is.
But you know, so basically, Epcot being like a World's Fair type
Yeah,
thing.
absolutely. That's what the
Um,
original intention was supposed to
that
be
was
too.
the original.
So
Well, after the whole city thing didn't plan out,
sure,
but you know, yeah, and I think that would definitely feel like it'd be better than. Like I said, I don't know what it is right now. I have no idea. Like I don't know what you mean by world celebration. What are we celebrating over here? Um, World Discovery, is that one of them? World Discovery?
it
I
is
don't even know what they are. What am I discovering?
space.
Oh, that's where the space is? Okay.
Yeah,
Hasn't that been, I mean, like,
you're discovering stuff on Mars. I guess I don't know.
I don't know.
You're
You
discovering how
know,
not to build a car.
sure, yeah.
At
That's
least,
what
at
test drive
least if
is.
any of my results have
Yeah.
anything to say about it, that's how you don't
That's
design a
what
car.
not to do.
Right.
But yeah, I think that's what I would.
Okay, that's fair. Um, Personally, I would go over to Dino Land and I would scrap the roadside attraction stuff.
Mhm.
Um, would continue to maintain the dinosaur theme, obviously, but I would do so in a jungle-like setting,
Okay.
and I would try to come up with a real place in someplace like Chile, excuse me,
Yeah.
or any of the South American areas that are there are numerous dig sites for
Yeah.
dinosaurs there. Potentially something like Mongolia as well, where you can
Mhm.
find all sorts of crazy shit over there when it comes to dinosaurs
Mhm.
and their fossils and everything like that. And I would try to make it as foreign as possible, as opposed to making it as comfortable as possible,
Yeah.
because I feel like the story, while well told, is a little all too familiar. I
Yeah.
guess to especially particularly to an American audience. So
Yeah.
to further part of the idea of walking with the dinosaurs in a way is it's very primitive,
Yeah.
shall we say. And I would, because you tend to find those types of skeletons and such in very remote areas, that also note that the settings that you find all these things in would also be classified
Mhm.
as primitive. So
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
the more that you can find a very remote and primitive setting as opposed to wacky, goofy roadside town,
Mhm.
that's how I would personally choose to update
Mhm.
Dinosaur. Again, I would bring in Joe Rody and say, let's try this again because
Yeah.
it worked for a little while, but now it's time. It's time for something
Yeah.
different. And here's what Joe Rody would do: he would go and sleep somewhere in Mongolia for 2 years and then come back with like the perfect attraction. So,
Right. Right.
that's me. I would look to the storytelling of Africa and Asia over at Animal Kingdom and utilize those as my guide stones, so to speak, because you can tell a very, very interesting story with Kilimanjaro Safari, while also showcasing a lot of animals.
Which they did. They had it when it first opened. They
Sure.
did tell a very interesting story. It wasn't just, oh, I'm seeing animals. It was, I am on a 3-week African safari and we got to deal with poachers, which is
Yep.
a very real thing that they deal with in Africa. So it was actually bringing in, not only were you getting a story, you were actually being taught a very real lesson about things that are actually happening to these animals that you're seeing on your safari.
No, agree. I'm not disputing that. I'm just
So educational.
yeah. Doesn't have to be, by the way, but it should at least immerse you in a realistic setting.
Right.
Now, this is why I have a problem with Toy Story Land. It's not a realistic setting. No matter how many different ways you twist it, it's not realistic. It's just not. You're not a toy.
I mean,
Okay, like that. I know that the message was Buzz is a toy in the first one, but you're not a toy. You should be if you want to evoke the childlike stuff. It should be about the the kid who gets to go play with all the toys
Yeah.
at that point. So that's how I would maybe shake something up like Toy Story Land. With Riviera, like that's a lost cause. That's just a sunken cost, and like there is no coming back from that one. But to the next resort, and everything like that, I would use Wilderness Lodge as my guide stone.
Yeah.
Not even Animal Kingdom Lodge because I feel like that's too ambitious, and that's part of the reason why it's so it's the reason why it's so beloved by those who beloved it. But in order to do something like that, you have to keep it away from everything else. And people are just coming to Disney World to go to the parks. I get it. So I think that's too ambitious. But something like Wilderness Lodge,
Wilderness Lodge would be a good one. Yeah.
that's something that you can more easily replicate the results of anyway than you could Animal Kingdom Lodge.
Right.
So that's how I would go about it, and I wouldn't whatever future crop of Imagineers is coming in. I'm begging you, don't ever feel like compelled to slap a movie character on something. If you are a good enough storyteller, then it does not matter if your story has a familiar character to it or not.
Right.
It will become a class in and of its own right.
Look at Figment.
That is a good example for theme park purposes. It's the best example for theme park purposes, by the way. That something that had absolutely nothing to do with nothing,
Right.
by the way,
Is now
completely from scratch.
An absolutely beloved character.
And this is why I get frustrated with Disney in particular, because I feel like they learn all the wrong lessons from something.
Yep.
The reason why the Figment is popular is not because he's on a fucking popcorn bucket.
Right.
The reason why that popcorn bucket is popular is because it had Figment on it.
Right.
So I'm really hoping that the next crop of Imagineers does not want to be put in a box and gets to tell their own
Joe
story.
Rody.
Yes,
Be
not
like
whoever
Joe
the fuck is there now. Like you don't want to be like your boss. Rebel against your boss. Begging you. God, I'm begging. Amanda.
Yeah.
We are on social media, are we not?
We are on social media. Yes, we are.
Where might we be found on social media?
All right. So you can find us on Facebook and that site formerly known as Twitter at Cynical Disney. You can find us everywhere else. So Instagram, Threads, TikTok, Pinterest. I think I covered all of them. And we are there. You can find us there at Cynics on Disney.
And of course, this podcast is brought to you by NotClub33.com. Make sure that you check out NotClub33.com for all the latest and greatest updates, including but not limited to the Notcast broadcast every single Friday right here on YouTube. Or if you're listening on the audio version on YouTube, every Friday at 4 p.m. Magic Kingdom time. That, of course, is East Coast time for all of you California people. Before we get out of here, guys, we have one more favor to ask of you. If you like this episode of the podcast, let us know by giving us a review, preferably something with 5 stars attached to it, and write something up, whether it's on Apple, Spotify, Google, whatever, wherever you listen to your podcast. Or if you're listening to us on YouTube, drop us a like, drop us a comment. We would love some feedback on all of this stuff. And make sure that you are subscribed, whether it is on YouTube or it is on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. That really would help us get up in the algorithm and expose us to way more listeners. And especially now that we are on video, you do not want me exposing myself in any other way, shape, or form. Until next time, guys, thank you so much again for listening. And we want to wish you, of course, a magical fucking day.